We are continuing our discussion on Ghana. And Ghana is going to become really famous for this gold salt trade. Because remember, they became powerful by controlling the gold and salt trade because King Sahil taxed everyone coming through. When Matthew was getting the salt from Tagaza, he got taxed. When Blake was getting the gold from Wangara, she was getting taxed. And all of those taxes went to Sahil, who then went and invested in a military. And of course, he then said, I have all of this money. Warriors like Campbell and Jacob and Simon, join me. And then they would conquer more land, and then Aden would be under Sahil's control, and then Aden would pay tribute, and there would be more land, more taxes, and then more soldiers being brought in forth for more land, more taxes. And it became so famous for all the gold it had, it was called the Land of Gold. It's pretty cool. Now, another reason why Ghana is going to be so strong, because, obviously if they're getting a military, they're going to have to be able to fight. And with that, it's like they have an advantage. They have iron, because they could have a huge army, but like if Amer has a huge army, but Isha has better weapons, Isha still might win. I mean, when you think about the colonial periods, which you guys hopefully talked about some in 4th grade, like the British, they're going and conquering all of these places, and they would have like armies of like 5,000 men, and they'd fight against armies of like 20 to 100,000 men. But because the British had things like machine guns and automatic firing rifles, the British would win. They would have like 3 casualties, and they would wind up killing like 14,000 people and wounding even more. So it's not as big of a technological leap that iron is, but they're fighting against people who are in Stone Age technology. So Ghana has iron spears. They have, iron arrowheads, things like that. They have, some swords, although they mostly use the spear, against stone, wood, and bone, like Stone Age. Now, one of the things that's going to be incredibly important for the rise of Ghana, too, is the camel. And you might be thinking, Mr. Kenny, why would a camel be such a big deal? And it's because camels are awesome. They have this terrible reputation of being mean and nasty and spitting at you when they're, yeah, I know, it's gross, right? Camel spit. But, like, this creature, like, believe what you may about God, like, designed perfectly for the desert, 2 eyelids. So, like, it's got a clear eyelid, like that's first, and then a regular eyelid. And it can open the regular eyelid and have the clear eyelid closed so that it can go and see in the middle of a sandstorm. Its hooves doesn't sink in desert. Like, if you're walking in the desert like that, your feet are going to sink in the sand, and that makes it even harder to go through and makes you more tired with the sun beating down on you. Camels, they don't have that problem, and of course you have the whole thing too that camels, they can go a very long distance without food or water. I know me, I'm thirsty all the time. I have to have this giant water bottle by me by teaching, and I drink like 2 of these during the school day. Camels, they're not so needy like Mr. Kenny. I always want a sandwich by lunch. Keep going. And here we see Ghana in relation to the trade routes. We say Tagaza here, this little triangle represents salt, Wangara, where present-day Ghana is, but then even going further in, and it kind of depended, but we notice Ghana doesn't actually control where the salt is. They're right outside of it, because this is going to be all forested at that time. But yep, lots and lots of gold. This is a primary source. You do not have to write anything on here, but just listen to this. The king wears necklaces round his neck and bracelets on his forearms, and he puts on a high cap decorated with gold and wrapped in a turban of fine cotton. He meets people in a domed pavilion around which stand 10 horses covered with gold embroidered materials, and on his right are the sons of the lesser kings of his country, wearing splendid garments and their hair plaited with gold. At the door of the pavilion are dogs of excellent pedigree. Round their necks they wear collars of gold and silver, studded with a number of balls of the same metals. I mean, think about how rich you are. Your horses covered in gold. Your doggies covered in gold. And then, so this line right here, and on his right are the sons of the lesser kings. They've got gold in the hair all over. Now, these sons of lesser kings, they're essentially hostages. Because here's how it works. The king of Ghana, you know, King King Jacob here, he goes, conquers land. He conquers, you know, Simonville. Simonville was a king in his own right. Jacob just says, well, you can still be king, but I'm over top of you. And so Simon's son lives in Jacob's like royal court. And part of the thing is like, so Simon's son, he's going to get a good education, he's going to get good food, he's going to be in the political center, and so that's going to help Simon's son, you know, be a powerful person when he grows up. But also the whole idea is Jacob has Simon's son because if Simon doesn't cooperate, oh, your son just got executed. Should have listened. So they're hostages. So even as hostages have gold all of them. Like the king was so wealthy, there's gold all over the place. Pretty cool. So Ghana is a Ghana. That was from the great Domenico Vigliotti, who I think he's in 9th or 10th grade now. Some of you might have known Domenico. He was an interesting guy. So around 1000 CE, we have Ghana at its biggest, most powerful moment. And we know around 900, Islam starts coming to Ghana. And originally, so merchants came, they said, hey, we'd like to trade with you. You've got stuff we want. And I've got stuff that you probably want. And they got along great. And the indigenous religions, so the religion of the people of Ghana and Islam, they got along just great. You know, there were Muslims living there, there were non-Muslims living there, and everything was hunky-dory. But then in 1076, a group called the Almoravids, they came from the north, and they attacked, and they said, it's real simple. Convert or die. And this breaks the tradition of people getting along. The Almoravids, they weren't very nice, to say the least. And they broke the tradition of people living peacefully. Now, the Almoravids attack, and they go to war. And for 11 years, the people of Ghana are battling the Almoravids. And Ghana wins. The Almoravids are pushed back. Ghana winds up being like at their southern border. But the thing is, the damage is done. Because remember, the king of Ghana, or the Ghana of Ghana, they used their military to protect the trade routes. They made it so that merchants like Claire Bear could safely go from Taikhaza to Wangara and be taxed along the way each time. But the army was so busy fighting the Almoravids that the trade routes became less safe, particularly because the Almoravids loved to go and raid those trade lines. So because they lost control of the trade, they got less wealth. Because they had less wealth, they had less military power. So this is the reverse circle of awesome then. And then kings like Simon before start asserting their own independence and breaking away. And King Aiden breaks away. And Queen Sarah and Queen Break. So they all go and they start breaking away. So Ghana then has even less territory. So less money. So a smaller army. And this is going to go and spell the end of Ghana because they can't control the trade routes. So the Almoravids don't win the war. Well, they don't win any of the battles, but it winds up going and still causing the end of Ghana. And we'll do just one more slide after this. You guys are being so dutiful, so patient. So yeah, Ghana winds up not losing the war, but it weakens them to a point where all right. Give you another second because I see some of you are still writing feverishly. I do love the architecture we wind up getting. Some of the mosques are really, really cool. People always ask about the sticks. It's like a form of scaffolding. So if they need to work on the roof, you know, Sarah will just climb up there and be able to work on it. Okay. So the end of Ghana. Another thing that's going to wind up hurting Ghana. Oh, yes, Elijah? Oh, whoops, meaning like an accident. Okay. I got so excited. I was like, he finally has a question. He's so wise, and now I get to help him. So they had a lack of resources because one of the things are they were, since they used so much military, they were really, really obsessed with going and making iron everything, iron tools, because it was so good. The problem is to make iron, you need charcoal. And to get charcoal, you go get that by cutting down trees. And so they cut down all of their trees. And the thing is, trees and their roots go make sure the soil is strong. So then when it starts raining, it winds up having erosion. And it winds up making it eventually so that water becomes scarce. So people are going to start leaving the territory as well because they destroy their ecosystem. And charcoal basically is wood, like you like cook it, and then it makes it so it burns better. And that's going to be our notes for the day. So I'm going to end the recording here. Do we have